What up, guys? All right. Today I want to talk to you about 80/20 principle and how it applies to real estate. How it applies to real estate when you're doing renovations and you're launching your property. So the 80/20 principle, I heard about it when it relates to product launch, not based on what some people think is like 80/20 ratio, while it is, like as far as like ingredients or 80%, let's say like for a candy bar, I know a guy says 80% of it is healthy, 20% is unhealthy. That's not what I mean. I mean 80/20 principle based on launching a product, based on the idea that nothing will ever be perfect. You have to get the product launched. You'll never have perfection, so you have to launch it when it seems about 80% of what it can possibly be, and then you'll fix all the bugs later on as they come, because they will come. And if you don't ever launch the product, then you will be detrimented by basically somewhat of a bastardized version of paralysis by overanalysis. So the way I heard about this product launch ratio philosophy, I was in Miami at a nightclub. Not a nightclub, actually. Revert that back. Not a nightclub. I was actually at a restaurant. I didn't do any nightclubs that night. But I was at a restaurant, and I was in the waiting area, ended up talking to this couple, and turns out this guy, he's like super rich. And he owns a mask company. So like the N95 mask and all that stuff. But he's been in business since 2008, so he did really well during COVID. What he gave me advice on was that during COVID, they had to launch their product, and they did not wait until the product was 100%. They had to launch the product the way it was. If they were to continue to try to make these masks impeccable, they would never have a product. So they had to get it to the point that it was going to be. And his advice to me was, anytime I'm launching a product, was to launch it at 80%. So for me, when somebody has credibility and they say something and they did really well in life, that's enough to win an argument for me. I don't need to argue the point that he's making. It makes a ton of sense. And that's based on this book called 3 Ways to Win an Argument, or Any Way to Win an Argument, where there's 3 ways to win any argument, which is logic, credibility, or emotion. Anyways, so when it relates to real estate, a lot of my clients, were renovating their house, or when I've renovated a house or flipped houses. Some people, when they renovate, they'll actually go back and just continue to go back on steps to like make it perfect. And that will keep them in that project for way too long. So when you have people that are doing that, that's all fine and dandy, like being someone who's attention to detail. But you need to just take a note and then think to yourself, is it worth going back, or do we continue to move forward? You have like an X amount of fuck ups you can have while building a house. You can kind of like get away with certain things, right? If you put a stud up and it's 16, it's like 16 and a quarter on center versus 16 on center, keep moving. Maybe like fix it real quick, but if you catch yourself like you did it again and you keep moving, you're like, oh, I did it again. If you keep like backtracking for those little things that will not cause the house to fall over, then you're going to be working on the same house while I go scoop up 3 more. You have to learn how to be quick and efficient and still do things intentional and have attention to detail. Move forward on those certain things. Now, if you're doing plumbing and then you're going to have a leak, that's not 80% product when the house is done. You're going to be ruining the house. So you have to go back for things like that. But a lot of time when it comes to homes, you can't just make it 100%. You have to launch it at 80. This relates to real estate investing primarily. You know about those people that have this product they never completed, right? I mean, that has to do with just becoming exhausted or burnt out because you're trying to be a perfectionist. So that's my thoughts on the 80/20 rule. I have some clients right now, and I have to remind them that so that we get their product to actually launch, and they'll see the finished product and see that they'll get premium rents. And that's really why you're in this game. You're not in this game to make your dream home and then have tenants go move in it. Your reasoning for this game is to buy a house, optimize it, rent it out, and stabilize it. That's the whole point. So if you're not following the 80-20 rule, you're going to be stuck with all kinds of issues like holding costs, a budget that's going to get wrecked. So you have to learn to just think about the big picture and then think, are you going to have the 80% product when you're done with renovations or when you launch the product on the market, or is it going to be below? Because you're never going to get 100%. All right, guys, take care. Keep investing.